Yeah, it's like somebody that gets up, everyone's drinking wine or beer, whiskey, whatever they're drinking, or water, I guess, if there's some people who don't drink that. They stand up and they say, "To Hannah McDonald." Hold on. No, before they even do it, they'll say, "To Hannah McDonald, a great patriot who stands for all that is right in America. To Hannah McDonald." And then everyone's like, "Hannah McDonald." And they all drink, right? And then she'll stand up and she'll say, "To Harley Backen." And then she'll say some nice things about Harley. And if there are any nice things to say about you. And they'll say, "To Harley Backen." And everybody's like, "Harley Backen." And we'll smack drinks and we drink. And what tends to happen at these things is that A, people are drinking more. And B, all the toasts tend to get more ridiculous as time gets over because it's sort of a wave of emotion plus alcohol gets these toasts going. Now, the problem was, for states' rights people, they didn't know where Jackson stood. We've been talking about what the North stands for and what the South stands for. But we really haven't talked about what Jackson stands for, other than common man, right? Does he believe more in federal rights? Or does he believe more in states' rights? This guy's been elected, no one really knows. Because think about it, who was he representing, essentially? The West, right? As you just say words and hope they land. Alright. Christmas. Dog. Peach. Hang. Alright, hope one of them falls. Alright. He represents the West, but he was also sort of born in the South, but he's also a federal military guy. And they wanted to flesh him out. Calhoun specifically. Calhoun was, remember, he was a Southerner and he was the vice president. They wanted to flesh him out. Now remember, when states' rights people talk about liberty and freedom, they mean a lack of central government, right? So Calhoun's thing was, we're going to get going into this Jefferson Day dinner, and we're all going to be toasting, and we're going to be doing that with our country. Our country, the greatest thing ever, the states' rights, and then someone else will be like, the states' rights, and someone else will, and then they'll lead to Jackson. They're hoping that they were going to get him up and commit to where no one knew where he was. Well, Jackson heard about this, and so when it got to him and everybody was excited, he gets up, he puts his glass in the air, and he says, what did he say? Oh yeah, "Our Union, it must be preserved." Don't write this down, it's not going to test. Our Union, it must be preserved, I'm going to test. But essentially, what's he siding with? States or federal? So I think a little more federal. And as soon as he does that, Calhoun says, "Liberty next to our Union is most dear." So really, our liberty, which is signed for states' rights, are more important. In politics, every side has their own code words that mean something else. Right? Do you guys know that? No. When, like, libertarians say they love freedom, that means they hate the government. When white people say law and order, what does that mean, Hannah? No. Yeah, when people say, "I believe in law and order," what that means is they hate black people. Right? And people who say that know that everyone else means that. There are code words that every political party has that everyone sort of understands what that means. Law and order forever was what Southern politicians talked about. "I'm a law and order candidate." What that means is I'm going to discriminate against black people. That's always meant for that. And every now and again you'll hear some Southern redneck say, "I'm more about law and order." What you really mean is, I'm about taking away the rights of people who want them. That's what that means. I don't know why that accent comes out all the time, but I think I like it. Oh, you guys are all like, "Oh my God, my dad always talks about law and order." My dad does. Yeah, I mean, actually, you can't see anybody. Be honest, how many of us, and I'll raise my hand, how many of us have heard a family member use an inappropriate racial remark at home? There you go. Alright? That's a great excuse.
I think a lot of people in here are lying. Everybody do.
You mean the people who didn't raise their hand are lying? How about in Switzerland? Do your parents use racial remarks, or grandparents? No? Oh, look at that, because everybody's white, yeah. I hate those. How about like, I hate the French, or I hate Belgians. No, stupid Germans. No one says that?
The rest of my family from here doesn't say anything like that, but my German grandmother's the one who wants the racial slur.
Right? Germans are racially insensitive? That's crazy. Usually Germans are so tolerant. Alright. They have a history of that.
Oh.
Of tolerance and lack of aggression.
You did the thing.
Alright. So that's the toast. Now, so all of these things sort of sound ridiculous, right? The Webster-Hayne debate, the Jefferson Day toast, why are we learning about this stuff, right? Because really what it does is it's codifying what everybody believes. None of that is more ridiculous than the Peggy Eaton affair.
Oh.
This is the most, you guys read about this, right?
Yes.
What was the Peggy Eaton affair? Who was Peggy Eaton? Yeah.
She was the daughter of a family who owned a boarding house, and she married the Secretary of War.
Okay, so she is the wife of the Secretary of War. So why do we care about Peggy Eaton? Because I'll bet that you cannot name the wives of any other 1830 cabinet member. I can't name the wives of any current cabinet members.
She was the same cabinet member.
They thought that she was their wife.
In Jacksonian era, right, in social circles, it's very, very defined. In Southern social circles, women who are consider themselves high society can snub you very easily, right? And what was happening to Peggy Eaton? She felt like she was being snubbed by the other wives, especially Calhoun's wife. Like they were a little bit snotty to her or something because maybe they didn't think she was good enough. This really pissed off Jackson. Jackson's wife. Does anyone know much about Jackson's wife?
She did, she died.
Yeah, she got
But you know what happened before she died?
Yes.
There were rumors spread that she actually had married Andrew Jackson, was still married to somebody else, and that she was the W word, right? And it really hurt Jackson that she was a woman. It hurt Jackson's feelings, and now this woman is being portrayed and her feelings hurt. So Jackson basically gets really mad at his cabinet, except Martin Van Buren. Who Martin Van Buren comes in and just fawns over Peggy. Oh my God, Peggy, what a great human you are. You're so great. By the way, guess who Jackson ends up picking to be his successor as a president? Martin Van Buren. Calhoun gets pissed. A bunch of the cabinet leaves, including Calhoun as vice president. There have been some historians that claim the Peggy Eaton affair was one of the early causes of the Civil War. I think that this is probably a stretch. That being said, what it does is it gets these people to stop talking and it cuts off relations between these federal people in the South. Jackson is almost going to invade South Carolina a few years after this. Literally was threatening to invade the state because he was so pissed off. Alright. So you have all these weird things going on. Hannah, what's the, or Quinn, either one of you, what's the time on that?
8 minutes.
8? Okay. Now let's talk about the Tariff of 1832, okay? And the Tariff Controversy of 1832. This is going to be a giant wedge between Calhoun and Jackson. In fact, this is the reason why Calhoun's going to resign from office, the Tariff of 1832. And he's going to come up with an idea called concurrent majority. Calhoun believed that our country could only survive if there were two presidents. One president representing the North and one president representing the South. And each one of them would have veto power over the other. Because as time went on, the North was going to be gaining more and more population and wealth and was going to be to bully the South. And because of that, Calhoun felt the only way to maintain a balance to keep our country together was to have one person control the South and one control the North. And it was called concurrent majority. Obviously, this was rejected for two reasons. One, it wouldn't work, and two, because it's stupid.
Didn't Rome do that with the Western and Eastern Bush?
Were they split up, or did they start?
I don't think there were like two Caesars. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, right.
Now they had, and I don't know a ton about ancient history, so keep that word. Do what? I can't hear you. Okay, yeah. Yeah, but they weren't Caesars. I mean, they were. Each one of them did each one of them rule a different part of the? I don't think they did they? I don't. Honestly, I really don't know enough about that. I mean, I know who the triumvirate were, but I don't know that one ruled one area, one ruled a different. They may have. I know it was a bigger deal with the church, with the split between Eastern and Western the church. And they may have been more like governing, like administrative. I don't think it was the same thing as what he was thinking. Like Octavian take one side. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I couldn't remember.
I think if they did that, and again I can't remember, it might have been more administrative. But I don't think there was ever a time where there wasn't one ruler, whether it was a tyrant or whether it was a Caesar that didn't have some authority over it.
Yeah, it was right where we call it from, just western and east.
They already split up before that though. So
Yeah,
I can't. You know what? I can't speak to it with authority, so I don't want to comment. I am laughably bad at ancient history, so you can all judge me now if you want, and that's fine. Okay. Tariff 1832. This is going to piss the South off a lot, and here's why this is ironic. It actually lowered tariffs. Tariff of 1832 lowered tariffs, and it really made the South mad. It lowered tariffs to 35%. Remember, they were 45% under the Tariff of Abominations. This lowered them down to the previous level. It lowered them 10%. And this pisses off the South to no end. Why? What would the South argue? Do what? That's exactly right. It's not enough. These tariffs should be way lower. You're not doing us a big favor by putting in at 35%. These should be lower. And so what happens in response is going to be South Carolina threatening to nullify this law. South Carolina literally begin to take up action. They form a committee and they nullify the law. South Carolina says, we are not going to enforce this law. And this is led by John Calhoun. They're going to nullify the Tariff of 1832. Their state legislature did.
So now they go back during the 40 whatever percent?
No, they're going to enforce no tariffs. This is a federal law, and the state of South Carolina just said, we're not going to do it. We're not going to do it. What's the problem with this?
Can't do that.
Yeah, this is a federal law, and the state's saying, I don't think so. Right? Remember, this was fixed. Who can determine a law to be unconstitutional? Supreme Court, because of judicial review, right? This is already settled. This was settled 30 years before this. And Jackson, who loves power, just had a state give him a giant middle finger. We're not doing this. And Jackson does not like to get flipped off. Jackson threatens to hang every single member of the South Carolina state legislature, including Calhoun. Then he threatens to invade South Carolina. South Carolina threatened to secede from the Union. So finally, who's our compromiser? Henry Clay. You'll never guess where he taught. It might just be put there, just in case you guys were wondering. You're going to start seeing this a lot more. In fact, if you're a freshman boy, guess what dorm you live in? Henry Clay Hall. That's right. The Transient Compromise. Should be called the Transient Compromise. The Clay's Compromise, the Tariff Compromise of 1833, says this. South Carolina will not nullify this law. First of all, the law will be upheld. Number two, the law that tariffs will be reduced by 10% over 8 years. So a slow reduction of tariffs over 8 years. So the South gets a lower tariff, but it's going to take a while to get there. And Jackson gets the fact that South Carolina will not nullify or threaten to secede from the Union. Who do you think won this? Who gets the victory on this?
Henry Clinton.
Well, like the North or South?
The South.
Jackson or South Carolina?
South.
Why do you say that?
Because they got what they wanted.
I mean, they basically threatened to do something unconstitutional and they got something out of it. Right? So I would say they probably did win this. Now in reaction, the government passes the Force Bill, sometimes called the Bloody Bill. The Force Bill, and you'll remember something like this before, it said, while the government is not going to attack you, we do reserve the right to make you enforce anything we want. What's that sound like? Sounds like the what? The Declaratory Act, right? Sounds like the Declaratory Act. We passed our own little Declaratory Act. What can you say this is a stepping stone toward? This is a step towards the Civil War, right? This is massive sectionalism. And now what's it look like? Jackson's sort of like, he loves federal power, but he also believes in states' rights, and he's kind of a weird bag. So, there we go. Alright, Quinn, can you start it and stop, please?